A story like mine should never be told. From my world is as forbidden as it's fragile. Without its mysteries, it cannot survive. Certainly, the geisha is one of the most typical and traditional of Japan, also one of the most discussed. Surrounded by an air of mystery, erotism, and sensuality, geishas have always practiced an irresistible attraction on people from West. On West, geisha is unjustly compared to a luxury prostitute, with the geisha is an artist. The name is composed by two kanji, gei, which means art, and sha, which means person. So the word geisha is exactly translated person of art. But how these women really are? Arthur Golden has answered to all these legendary figures' questions. He wrote a novel deeply well-researched, which maintains all the immediacy and the emotion of a true story. The American writer Golden attended Harvard University and is graduated in History of Art, specializing himself in Japanese as one. In 1980, he achieved a master's degree in History of Japanese Art at Columbia University. During his studies, he became deeply fond of Nipponese culture, especially on geisha's controversial universe. Above all, thanks to the professor of Japanese history at New York University, Jacob Harris, who introduced him to one of the most 60s well-known Kyoto geishas, Mineko Iwasaki. In spring 1936, Harris was struck by geishas when his father brought him to attend a dance show in Kyoto. He says, "I just remember two details of that occurrence. The first was that we were the only people from West. The second was certainly the multitude of bright kimonos of the young Japanese women who danced on stage. Obviously, I couldn't imagine that, 50 years on, one of those women would be my dear friend." So Mineko Iwasaki welcomed the author in her house in Kyoto, correcting him every misunderstanding on some aspects of the life of a geisha. From here, Memories of a Geisha was created, a wonderful framework of almost totally disappeared, but which remains alive in the art of Japan and in the rest of the world. Page after page, the story of Sayuri, the protagonist of the novel, was told in first person. The author has chosen to make her speak, giving her voice, so that they were the direct words of the protagonist that narrate what was happened in the course of her life. Sayuri tells the story as old geisha transplanted to the West. She runs with a kimono on the streets of New York, and she wears it elegance, class, and mystery that have marked his life when she has become one of the most beautiful and requested geishas of Gion. Chiyo was her name. A little girl grew up in a family of fishermen in a small village called Yoroido. In order to have the money needed to give her a proper burial to his wife, the father of the protagonist sold Chiyo and her elder sister to an okiya, or a geisha house, in Kyoto. The intermediary is Mr. Tanaka, the owner of the fishing company for which Chiyo's father worked. Chiyo herself says in the book, "In the afternoon I met that man, was the happiest of my life, and even the ugly." At first, Tanaka misleads the protagonist, saying he wanted to take her and her sister Satsu in view of that of their mother. But then Tanaka leads them to a train station and delivers them to one of the employees of the okiya Nitta to bring them to Gion, the geisha district of Kyoto. Reached their destination, they were separated and the older sister Satsu is sold to a brothel. When Okiya's door opens, Chiyo will become part of a new world, of beauty, of grace, but of obedience and malice. The protagonist will go to a dance and music school, tea ceremony, and posture for geishas. Nothing will be spared to her, and nothing will be easy. She will find obstacles along the way too big for a girl of her age, as she awareness that she was taken from her family and their origins to separation from her sister. She will be submit to strict rule imposed by grandmother, the elderly, the mother, owner of the okiya and retired geisha, and auntie, and Atsumomo's weakness, until the moment the undisputed and famous geisha. However, she will find the friendship of the other student, Pumpkin. The little Chiyo is a beautiful little girl with blue-gray eyes, out of the ordinary, very rare and considered an add value for the East, which will allow her to be noticed even in the little things of everyday life. in the most innocent gestures that are common to a little girl. Chio starts lessons to become a geisha, even though her only desire is to be reunited with her sister and return home. After a long time, she can get in touch with Satsu, and they decided to run away together, but the protagonist will not fix at the appointment because, trying to escape from a roof, falls to the ground and broken arms. At this point, the mother decides not to invest more money in the education of the girl because of her attempt to escape and makes her work as a servant. Then Chio was warned about her parents' death, and she decided she must become a geisha. The meeting with the president changes her destiny, as she says. In that brief meeting with the president, I changed. I wasn't the lost creator anymore, forced to face an empty existence, but I was a girl who had a purpose in her life. From the very first meeting, Chio will spend the next few years trying to seduce him. She was also called by the most famous geishas in Gion, Mamea, unappreciated by Atsumomo, both because she is a rival in charm and notoriety, and because she has earned its independence as a geisha thanks to a danna, or a rich protector. Mamea adopts Chio as her younger sister, making her become an apprentice Maiko, and prepares her to become a good geisha. The entrance of the protagonist in the apprenticeship is marked by a change of name. From now, Chio will be called Sayuri. Initially, her career goes very slowly because Atsumomo tries in every way to obstruct her success, but after her Mitsuage is sold to a price that pays off all her debts to the Okiya since Chio was brought, the mother decided to adopt her and Atsumomo's persecution ends until she will be expelled from the Okiya. Sayuri fervently hopes of being able to entertain the president, but the events bring her to spend more time with his business partner. Nobu, a war hero without an arm and the body, especially the face, disfigured. This man is very unfriendly and he falls in love with Sayuri. She forced, because of her work, to stay more with Nobu rather than his beloved president. The outbreak of the war kneels down Japan and creates disorder in Sayuri's life. So he is saved from life at the factory thanks to Nobu, who lets her go to a friend and creators of kimono. After so many years, her physical beauty is tarnished by manual labor and lack of food. The life of splendor and elegance is replaced by a new reality. After the end of war, Sayuri manages to convince her mother to reopen the Okiya and back to work as a geisha. However, her life is collapsing towards Nobu, which was also nominated as her danna, until she decides to implement a plan that will put the man in a position to reject it. She indulges herself to the Prime Minister and asks Pumpkin to discover them, but her friend carries the president. As a result, it requires the presence of the girl in a tea room. Here, she confides in her that Nobu has decided to refuse her to become his danna, and that Mamea had taken her under her wing when she was a child thanks to him, and that she desires her more than any other woman, then kisses her passionately. Finally, he becomes her danna. He relieves her from the Okiya and also from the world of geisha. Then, after that Sayuri has a baby with the president, although the matter remains very implied in the story, she moved to New York, where she opened an elegant tea house for Japanese businessmen. Sayuri will move there for the rest of her life, keeping on see her beloved president all the time, in which he will travel in America to business. His novel is a journey, and during the travel it isn't important the goal, but just the travel. The pleasure of reading exceeds the expectation to discover the epilogue. Memories of a Geisha is a trip in time that is gone, swept away by the Second World War and globalization, the phenomenon that everything absorbs, grinds and standardizes. It's a story told with precision and abundance of details, so as to make you feel an inhabitant of the Okiya and taking part of her daily life. A journey of discovery and knowledge, a journey to be undertaken.
From this wonderful novel was drawn on for the eponymous film Memories of a Geisha, directed by Rob Marshall and produced by Steven Spielberg, and released in theaters in 2005, and screened in Japan under the title of Sayuri. In his latest work, Marshall is surrounded by experts and scholars of Japanese culture. In fact, she sets and costumes, as well as the music, turn out to be a accurate reconstruction of the recent Japanese past. The cast is excellent, formed mostly by international stars. The movie combines two fundamental issues: the art and tradition of the geisha and the desire to live an impossible love. The film rather accurately reproduced the novel, although some differences are showed. For example, in the book, Sayuri and her sister are sold after Chiyo met Mr. Tanaka Ikiro, a man whose family owns the Japan Coastal Seafood Company. Struck by the color of her eyes, Mr. Tanaka convinced Chiyo's father to sell his two daughters. The film omits these details and immediately moves to the moment when the two girls are separated from their families in the night scene in Yoroido. In the movie, the man loved by Sayuri performs the role of general director of Ivamura Electric, but in the book he is the president. In the film, the position of president is held by Nobu, which in the novel is the general manager in love with Sayuri. Also in the book, Nobu looks like a worm mutilated without one arm, while in the film he is presented with only a scar on his face. The scene of the fire that leads to the collapse of Atsumomo is not in the book. The latter finds out of Sayuri's secret diary and its contents, who can back it back, and with cunning she turns of the situation against the main geisha, earning the favors of the mother. The novel represents the Atsumomo decline as a slow fall that culminates in a final push by Mamea and Sayuri. The transition between the various stages of their careers as a geisha in the film rapidly take place and make little mention of the Sayuri's life as a geisha. Instead, the scene in which, after the Second World War, Pumpkin is already influenced by Western culture, drinks a lot of sake, she speaks as a US-based, loves jazz music and smokes only Lucky Strike, typical American cigarettes brand, is not in the novel. In the novel, Sayuri has in fact two Dannas, although not at the same times, the General Tottori, which is not even mentioned in the movie, and then the President. Sayuri finally engages with the latter in New York and permanently moved there and managing a tea house. It is even mentioned that Sayuri has a son from his beloved president, whose identity must remain secret for business reasons. Instead, the film ends before the emigration of Sayuri to New York, with the general director. Indeed, in the final shows, they kiss each other and walk together along the river. However, these differences can be easily overlooked if you let yourself carry away and shared by soft music, by the breathtaking sceneries, and by the bright colors of the kimonos. Neither to the book nor to the film criticism were spared. In fact, after the Japanese edition of the novel was published, Arthur Golden was sued for breach of contract and defamation of character by Mineko Iwasaki, a retired geisha that he had interviewed for background information while writing the novel. The plaintiff asserted that Golden had agreed to protect her anonymity if she told him about her life as a geisha, due to the traditional code of silence about their clients. However, Golden listed Iwasaki as a source in his acknowledgement for the novel, causing her to face a serious backlash to the point of death threats.